Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the lab. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let's see here. What is this? This will be January 2nd, so this will be the second day of 2021. I've had a couple of thoughts over the last week and a half or so, as we've been pushing the bot forward and kind of getting the bot as close to tested as humanly possible. I told myself that ideally at the start of the new year we would start working on new features, and that is exactly what I'm finally getting back to. Real quick though, before we get into that, just as a heads up, so the simplify config branch that we were working on in the last stream, I decided to shelve that branch because of just the number of divergent issues that we ended up creating for ourselves. It kind of made things a little messy. And so instead of trying to rectify that and then trying to build features on top of it, I decided, let's just go back to what was effectively the working condition, and we can basically fix those issues probably in an off hours. But there are some ideas in that I did want to port out. I'm probably not going to do it today, but I'll probably do it on an off hours, say after stream. But that would be things like breaking up the subscription handler, moving some stuff around, pulling config out of main.go and turning it into a config object. I was still kind of keen on that idea, so I'll probably keep that. But removing some other bits that kind of complicated things, and we'll kind of decide where we want to go from there. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and get into the code screen, and let's see if this works. Hey, it does. Sweet. I decided to break up the source for code and the Trello board and so on and so forth. Instead of those being like just a slice of the desktop, those are now just window captures. So it keeps things a little bit nicer, and it prevents me from, say, like right now I'm waving something in front of the screen, but you can't see it. So hopefully that'll solve some of those issues. So what I would like to work on today is more or less a POC that is going to enable a number of MVP3 features, as well as what is going to be probably the last MVP2 feature that I work on, which actually this needs to be moved to MVP3, and that I might work on as part of MVP2, still to be determined. But anyway, so we have things like on-stream polls, an alert box, chat box. Effectively, you can kind of potentially see the theme here. I am more or less removing my dependence on third-party applications to do these things. In my case specifically, Streamlabs. So I would be removing Streamlabs in favor of, instead of using another tool like Stream Elements or Nightbot or so forth, instead I figure why not just build them into the bot? That's kind of the whole point of doing this, right? And a lot of these features kind of depend on this on-screen features POC. So I think that's what we're going to start working on. Hello, Chaos. Thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome back to the lab. How you doing? I say hello, smart person, to you. Alrighty. So, when it comes to on-screen features, Kamikaze, Rallo, how are you? Thanks so much for stopping by.
How are you holding up? Because I'm a potato.
Oh, I'm very sad that the TTS didn't do its thing, but thank you so much for the 4-month subscription. Holy shit. She doesn't say it. I don't know why. Yep. This is why I'm going on this tangent to say that I am removing Streamlabs from my life, because I just don't like that kind of inconsistency, we'll call it. So we're just gonna do it ourselves. How the hell we're gonna do TTS? Might be a bit of a process. But so when I say on-screen features, I'm basically meaning on-stream features. And so that would be things like what you just saw a moment ago, the alert box popping up, the chat box that's off to the side. Basically, all of these things are considered to be on screen, as in you guys can see them. Well, in order for them to be on screen, that's the part that I'm trying to figure out. That's more or less the part of trying to figure out how to implement those things. Now, when it comes to OBS, if I remember correctly, there's actually two different ways to do this. Let's see, and I'm kind of looking at a text box for OBS just to see what that actually looks like. Yeah. Okay. So one possible way, and the way that I've seen be done for a lot of these features, is a browser source. So in OBS, what you can effectively do is you can add a source for content, and that source is a browser URL. That browser URL will return something. It's basically a web page that's being returned, and that data will then be displayed on screen. I think I know how to do that part particularly easily, because that's basically just an API. Is it just a web API? So if we did a web API, that would enable a lot of those features. It does make me wonder if a web API is necessary for some features. I'll have to decide what that looks like. But ideas. Good morning, Fiol. Good morning, Sleo. How is everybody doing? Thanks so much for stopping by. Welcome to the lab. I am also noticing that the bot is not greeting everybody, which tells me that that change that I made to the simplify config was in fact incorrect. Let's see. Key expiration time was a thing. Ledger. Finally going home today. So that's nice. That is nice. Fantastic. And a happy new year. Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2021. While I know a number of people have been saying that 2021 is just going to be 2020 New Game Plus, I would like to say that 2021 is going to be as good as we can make it. We are going to probably have some bullshit. That is, I mean, that's the case for any year, I think. Although we can definitely say that 2020's bullshit has been particularly bullshittery. But I like to focus on the things that were fantastic about 2020 and the things that we gained over 2020. Hold on to those. Don't dwell too much on the negatives. Easy to say, right? I'm a bit mad that I can't seem to fix my sleep schedule. Mood. Mine has jumped all over the place in the last little while. Oh, not quick fix. Go to definition. That's exactly where I was. Main.go. Was it a main.go that I did this? Yeah, there it is. That's what it's supposed to be. Or at least that's what it's supposed to be, but it's not. Let's see. So we greeted sorcery, we greeted kamikaze, we greeted chaos. Interesting. Huh. Add that to the list of things that I need to look at. I think those are the same thing. So we got sound alerts. We don't need that anymore. Probably won't need that, but yeah, well, actually, yeah, we'll keep those. Okay, so how am I gonna do this? I think it makes sense in order for us to do this, and this is also potentially going to finally get rid of the keep alive that we've been doing for God knows how long at this point. I think it probably makes sense to just do a server, just do a HTTP server. So let's take a look-see here. Git diff. What have I changed? Git add, git commit, amend, git push -f. Never do that, by the way. We're gonna do a git checkout -b on screen. On screen. Okay. Now, hello, Rockraid. Thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome to the lab. How you doing, mate? So, how do we want to do this? I am probably going to do the thing that I almost always do, which is make dir, and this would be... Do I want to have this a server? Yeah, let's make it a server. Have server, server.go. Do a G, bring that in, close that out. Working on making 2021 a little better. What else? That's fair. That is all that we can do, is just make 2021 better. And by make it better, I mostly mean just add to the bullshit positive things. Be kind to each other and all that fun. Oh yeah, I forgot to test CatCam. 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 Hell yeah. Does it come back off? It does come back off! Fuck yeah! I may or may not have spent an exorbitant amount of time making that work. Okay, so what I would like to do is a thing. Number one, I need to close FF tabs. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for Matt Ryer. Actually, no, this would be on my GitHub. Let's take a look, sure. At least I think I still have this thing. Let's see. New project, adjustable cam that can be steered using redemptions. I'm internalizing what that would look like. Or I should say, I'm trying to internalize what that would look like. I want that to be a thing. Huh. Yeah. Is it doable? Probably. Mind you, the camera mount would effectively have to become a gimbal with full-on servo. But that feels like something that could absolutely be done, especially with the GoBot project. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. So, oh, I'm not showing this. So this is something that that I more or less follow from day one when it comes to writing HTTP services, in Go specifically. I follow the way that Matt Ryer does these services, which the general idea is you have a type server struct. That struct contains any dependencies that may be shared between routes, which in our case, for the time being, we're probably not going to have any such dependencies, but that may change in the future. You have your routes, which are stored in a routes.go, and those routes effectively hang off of the server, and then you can declare your handlers basically wherever you want, and I'll showcase what that looks like. And then we're going to be doing handle func, taking arguments for specific dependencies, which is definitely a thing. Middleware, which we probably won't do. That's a thing. That's a thing. That is definitely going to be a thing. And then I think all we have to do is implement the serve HTTP, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. Watched Lord of the Ring, ate nice food. Had G&T, so it was a nice evening. Oh, that's fantastic. Hell yeah. And then more D&D? Yes. The world needs more D&D. Let's see here. Now, the thing that I can never remember more do not disturb. Yes. Now, the thing that I can never remember is how do you call the serve HTTP method? Oops. Matt Ryer. How I write Go services. There was a version of this. Yeah. Okay, so he literally just moved it there. Let's see here. GitHub.com Matt Ryer. Yeah. Let's take a look-see. It's the only thing that I can never remember, which is how to do the serve HTTP part. Basic camera raw 2 reader. Might give that a look. Captain's log, lint, silk. I could have sworn that this existed somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe. Let's see. Non-app, basic currency decoding app. No. Nope, that's just an app. Memory, MongoDB, REST mapper, web services. No. No, that's not it either. Okay. Alrighty, well, go HTTP. Go HTTP server. I have questions, Rock. I have many, many questions. Let's see here. Custom HTTP server. I think it's just serve HTTP. Or at least it's something to that effect, but for the life of me, I can never remember. Or is it just delegate to listen and serve? It might just be delegate to listen and serve. I think that might be what I'm missing. Might be what I'm missing. Paste blog. Right. It's s.router.serve HTTP. The challenge being, how does one make a router? Well, let's go to the server first of all. So this is package server type server struct, then router equals HTTP dot servmux, I think it is. Yeah. Func new server. I could just say new, which returns a server. I don't recall if we need to initialize that at all. New servmux, yeah. So return server, and then router equals http dot new servmux. Close like that. And now we can start looking at, well, we can do this in a couple of ways, I think. Either we can do like so. Routes. We still see the browser? Ah, darn it. It's supposed to close. Interesting, so that button doesn't work.
So, how are you holding up? Because I'm a potato.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for the 4 months feel. Holy shit. 4 months. That is wild to think that we've been doing this for 4 months now. And y'all's continued support for the lab is absolute best. So thank you. Thank you to everybody. Damn. 3 in 1 day. It says 4 months. I go with 4 months. This will be the start of the 4th month, I guess is what that means. Yeah. Things. Okay. Actually, let me turn that off. So, in order to do this, s.router.handlefunc. This is going to be subs last. And this will be last, well, s dot last sub. Something like that. And then we'll probably move these somewhere else once we get there. And this is going to return a http.handlerfunc. Yeah. And this will return func. W is http.response writer. R is a http.request. And then for this, we're just going to say w.write byte last sub. Or in fact, we'll just say last sub is, well, in this case, fuel. just for testing purposes. Right. And then func s server serve HTTP. Would be s.router.serve HTTP, and then these would be the arguments. Well, sorry, change in this WR. So with that, that gives us the ability to come down into main.go, and then it's log.fatal http dot listen and serve. I think this would be just 8080, and then the function would be serve. So srv equals server.new, and then log.fatal http.listen and serve, or does it need to be like that? Yeah. Okay. I think this does actually need to return a pointer to server. Do like that. Okay. All of this is literally just setup, if you will, for the ability to serve HTTP. Now the question becomes, is this actually going to work? I don't know. Okay, so that's doing a thing, so let's clear that. Go run main.go. Oh, imported time but not used. Yeah. Well, let's just delete it. Let's just delete it. How about now? Oh. Oh. Okay. Okay. So then if we do localhost 8080, can you tell I've been messing with Prometheus? Subs last. 404 page not found. Okay. Or is it sub last? Server. Oh, no. Subs last. Subs last. Oh, because we never called routes. So I think we'll do this here. Equals at server srv dot routes, then return srv. Usually you don't do that, I think. But in this case, who cares? So we do a go run main.go, we get our printout for that, we come back over to here. Voila! Hey, yo, you're on screen, you're on television. So, is this a website served by the bot to check stats from the stream? It can be, but what we are actually using it for, and yay, the chat's still working. What we are actually using it for is on-screen features. I'm on television. Oh my god. Let's see here. Let's do a last sub. The URL is localhost 8080 subs last. And let's see. Oh, that is tiny. I think this needs to be like 100 by 100. Background color is whatever. Color is FFF. And font size is 24. Because why not? Oh, there it is. Ta-da! Oh shit. Fuel. You know what, Fuel? You get to just chill there. Hell yeah. Let's see here. Isn't this a feature already present in many other streaming tools? Are we not reinventing the wheel here? Hey, Rock. What is this project in general? But yes. So TLDR, the whole reason for me reinventing all of these wheels is for fun. Literally just for fun. And in this particular case, I am kind of in the process of removing Streamlabs from my life. So, it's one of those things of like, yes, I could go and I could use Streamlabs or Stream Elements or Nightbot or etc. But where's the fun in that? But yes, this is absolutely a reinvention of the wheel. Exactly. That's kind of the whole reason that we're doing this POC in the first place. Like this whole POC was literally just to see if we could do that. And in fact, I wonder if I can make that like an actual official thing, because that would be kind of cool. Last sub label. This is going to just say last sub. Probably going to be massive. Yeah, it is. Because of course it is. That looks scuffed as shit, and I love it. Damn. The text from the bot looks better than the text from a native text. All right. So that means we're just going to make the bot say what I wanted to say. Last sub. Oh, that's probably going to look fucking terrible. But we're going to do it anyway. Boop. Okay. So now the question becomes, how often does that refresh? And this could definitely be like 5 or 1, because we're honestly not doing anything. Oh, because it's got a cache. Interesting. Okay, so that looks scuffed as shit. But hey, it works. It actually works. Which means, now whether or not it actually makes sense to do a URL for this, to be determined. Ah, so this, okay, so that actually has a cache, which means that there would have to be something there would have to be something in the background here that is actually pinging the server. Ah. Interesting. And I think the other thing to this too is that if we actually made this just a HTTP template, this could be all kinds of fun. But the challenge is going to be, how do I... Because effectively, this is almost like downloading a web page. So if that web page is active, then that means that this web page could potentially turn around and pull the bot. That is very interesting. That is very interesting. And I think that's more or less what we're going to have to do in order to get some of these things to be like to change up and down. Thank you. Because if I change this, well, if I change this to something random, yeah, so I think this is going to have to be a polling page. So we're effectively going to have to write a HTML template with some JavaScript that's polling the appropriate endpoint, and then that endpoint updates the content, which is interesting. And I think we can do that in a relatively simplistic way. So let me think if let me see if I can describe this properly. So let's do touch test.html. And then later pf test.html. So for this, HTML lang equals en. And then head title is empty, so we don't care. Body is going to have some stuff. Down at the bottom here is going to be a script. And yes, I'm dating myself just a little bit. And that script is more or less going to be responsible for the polling. So in the body, in the HTML. Okay, ready for the ride home? See you around. Thank you so much for stopping by, Kamikaze. Thank you very much. Have a safe trip home, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. So what we could do is something like class equals content. Yeah. And then in here, we would effectively be setting up a request loop. So if we say request localhost 8080 subs last. Then r dot, well, we would do something. Document.get element by class name. perhaps. Or it could be document dot, what is it, query selector. And I think query selector would be content. Section.content dot inner HTML equals R, and then catch error da, 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 da. Yeah, I'm starting to feel less inclined towards the code windows. So let's bring that down. Let's bring that back up. Yeah, there we go. Well, code window idea was interesting. I don't like it as much. Let's see here. Let's actually do this. So content equals, or we should say let content equals document dot query selector section dot content, and then change to dot content dot inner HTML equals R, or content dot inner HTML equals error dot, or I guess in this case it would just be error. Now the challenge is, are we actually going to have browser request? We'll find out. So on Firefox, what answer is no. Select element console. Request is not defined. Okay. JavaScript browser request. Is that available? I feel like request should have just been a thing. Oh, it's fetch. Yeah. It's fetch, not request. Allegedly. Now, browser fetch. Yep. Does make you wonder. Oh, that needs to be moved ever so slightly. Yeah, there we go. I think it would look something like that. Network error when attempting to fetch resource. What's that? Character encoding the HTML document was not unclear. Document will be rendered with garbled text in some configuration. Oh my god. Okay. Bloody freaking cores. Always bloody cores. Okay. So let's see here. Cross origin request blocked. Although technically if I served it from the URL, that would probably be easier. Why the hell not? Let's just grab this. So to kind of catch up just a little bit. So more or less what we're doing is I'm considering the possibility that if I were to serve a HTML page from the bot as basically a server rendered template. And if that page were able to do something like this, say do this on a loop, let's see here. So this could be function fetch content. That looks disgusting. And then I guess technically it's set timeout. Sure. And then fetch content every 3 seconds, perhaps? You can tell how long it's been since I've actually written quote-unquote proper JavaScript. But in theory, if I were to serve this HTML from the bot, then I think that would give me a HTML page that could then self-reference. The challenge would be that on the HTML side of things, or on the server side of things, I would have to populate this part. So I would have to fill in what the URL has to be so that it knows where to query back to. But then once I've got that figured out, and I think this can be self-referencing. So let's see, server. And now for templates, go HTML template. And I think this is just the same thing. Yeah. Template a must. Once template is passed, the content type header is automatically set. That's pretty freaking cool. Which DSL? The mustache templates? I don't think I've ever seen a DSL that's meant to be like a text interpolator that wasn't weird as shit. They all look so weird, but they're also trying to do stuff like that. Like, oh, this is not just text interpolation. This is also control loops and or looping constructs and control structures and wee. That's because Jenkins DSL is just groovy, but even groovy looks weird as shit whenever you start doing some weird stuff. Like, ever tried to grab from a Jenkins secret store a secret that you then had to use to access a Jenkins secret? That's where shit gets real weird. But that's cool. So if I have a HTML template and it's already parsed, that's pretty cool. And then this is where the sync.once approach really comes into play. Yeah, so it's this guy. So inside of our handler, we say init is a sync.once, and then init.do. And then inside of this, we can do our template parse, which this would go like so. Template is a HTML template. No worries, Fuel. Thank you so much for the lurk. And then here we would do template dot parse. Oh, I didn't grab my test dot, nope, test.html, yoink. This is going to be ugly, but we're just going to go with it. Plonk. So that gives us a template.parse. Which we can do a thing. And we do need to check for the error. So simple error equals template.parse. Is it template.parse or is it just, yeah. Is it? Do we have to do a template.new? I think we have to do a template.new. Yeah. Yeah, I think we have to do a template.new. But can we do that? Looks like we can do that. HTML code in line of Go code. Don't worry, we'll fix it. Because really I just want to see this work. And then for here we would do template.execute. W would be our response. And then we wouldn't really have anything to pass to it, so we would just pass nil. Not enough arguments to, okay. Oh yeah, this needs to be class subs template. String not terminated. String not terminated. Gotta terminate the strings. Make sure go test has worked. Temple is declared but not used. Which interesting. That's template.parse files. I don't really want to do a template.parse files, although I guess I may have to. Template can either be parsed from string or file on disk, as usually the case. Templates are parsed from disk. That shows how to do so. Okay. Okay, fine. Do we really not have an option to do like template dot? Oh, parse club creates a new template. Nope. Dot. All right, fine. But that. temple error. How about that? And is going to complain that it's not used, which is okay. If template error does not equal to nil, well, in this case, we'll probably want to log.fatalf because last subs template did not parse. %v error fatal last subs did not parse. Yeah, I don't like breaking the mold. Do like that. Otherwise, we return execute on that. Template is declared but not used, even though it's declared right there. Go test works. Go test works. Okay. Close that, run that. Let's see if it explodes. Yep, it does explode. What are you complaining about? Invalid memory address or nil pointer dereference. Okay, so you cannot set nil. And you can't do that either. I hate that. Not gonna lie, I hate that. I would like to fix that very, very quickly. Woof. That looks terrible. Okay, so that's still not working. Server 38. No, it's just a sync.once. Not a reference to sync.once. Yeah. All right, and this actually goes down here. Ugh. Yeah, I'm not as much of a fan of the way that that looks, but that's kinda how she goes. We will absolutely be moving that into something much, much cleaner. Ugh. Once we actually get the thing running. Okay. So now if we go to localhost 8080 subs last. Ooh. Object response. It's a start. It is doing a thing. Which is pretty freaking cool, not gonna lie. Okay, okay. Fetch, res. Res.text. Okay, okay. So that means that this over here becomes then our text. Yeah. Now this is interesting and strange and fun. Close that out. So there's a 3-second delay, which we don't necessarily want. Oh yes, right, because this is now HTML, which we don't want. don't believe. Yeah, no. Yeah. So we're going to have to think about how we would want to do this part. s.router.handlefunc. I don't like that, but nah. Last sub. This will be last sub view. Just to differentiate the two. And then that means that func s is a server. Fetch last sub. http.handlerfunc. Returns one of these. w.write. Eventually this will be replaced by basically a call to some code that will give us this data. But for now, just in the vein of attempting to get the full process to work. Oh, and also we do want to fix this part. So at first we want to fetch content. Then we want to set a timeout for fetch content. So let's reload that. Allow. Come back into here, refresh. Holy shit. Huh. Well, that just worked. So now this. Now the challenge is that I'm trying to get this to the point to where it doesn't have to be reloaded every time. But that's a damn good start. I think what we can do, and sorry, Fuel, I'm going to replace this for just a moment. So let's see here. I forget how to do this. Golang UUID is literally just Google UUID. Or, you know, we could just do changing this. Let's see. Time equals fmt.sprintf %d time dot Unix or time dot now dot Unix. Do like that. That way we can at least see if once we have that site rolling, does this label continue to update? Oh, I see it updating. It needs to be a little bit bigger. It's freaking updating. Hell yeah. Oh, that's so good. And I think for this we won't need custom CSS. Well, actually, technically, yeah, we would. We would need this to be body color is number FFF, which, yes, I know you guys can't see the OBS screen. Hell yeah. Why is it so pixelated? Probably just because of this is text being rendered to a page, which is then being rendered onto OBS. and then I'm stretching that instead of sizing it the size that it's supposed to be. I'm stretching it. So what I should probably do should probably do something to fix that, but is there a polling rate in OBS? Doesn't look like it. The only thing that I can set in terms of a rate is frames per second. Oh, sorry, Tilly. Oh, I'm sorry. So mad at me. I rolled backwards and Tilly was there. And now she's mad at me. What a surprise. Ow. So yes, it's probably very pixelated because of, I mean, I'm not really doing anything for rendering. OBS does have anti-aliasing, but it's very minimal. And then in terms of the poll rate, the only thing that I can really set is the FPS. So if I was doing animations, it would probably make sense to set the FPS to something higher. But for text, FPS is set to 1. I hope you never roll on their tails. Nah. If this thing gets too close to them, they actually run before I can ever roll over them. And this has been 6 years or so. 6 years and I haven't done it yet. Knock on wood. Okay. So that's not half bad. Although it does appear to stop at some point. Okay. So it seems like I need to set a cache bust of some kind. Is there a way to do that? Let's see. Doesn't look like it. Okay. So effectively what appears to be happening is that the page just stops rendering after a period. So localhost 8080 subs last. That's probably because I'm not resetting the timeout. Yeah, it's because I'm not setting the timeout. Now, instead of a set timeout, is there, does JavaScript have the equivalent of an interval? Set interval? Alert hello every 3 seconds. Bingo. It's literally just set interval. Yeah. Set interval. So that's not actually that part, it's my part. It's my code. My code being dumb. There it goes. So, as a recap, just for my brain and to ensure that that I got this up and running properly. Oh, yes. Okay. So first and foremost, in order to put something on the screen, we had two options. We could either go with the local file route, where the bot would be writing content to a file, and then OBS would then read the contents of that file. All well and good for local testing, but doesn't really help us if we ever wanted to deploy the bot somewhere, because at that point, the bot is no longer a local file. It's now a file sitting externally. So that wouldn't really help us. So instead, we have the option to do a browser source. And for a browser source, all we have to have is a HTTP endpoint that we can hit, that OBS can hit. But OBS doesn't constantly hit a browser URL. It's basically acting like a browser. It makes a request to the server, fetches the result, and then that's in effect it. So to set up a URL for OBS to hit, or at least a URI, we created a server. And again, I follow the Matt Ryer approach to creating a server, which is creating a server struct, having a routes definition, which the routes definition, and I can probably move this down to the bottom. The routes definition defines what routes this server is going to respond to. And we do it in a separate routes function, mostly so that we can futz around with the server if we wanted to. In a test, for example, we can use server as a test server and only register the routes that we want to register. There's some finagling that we can do there. And then handlers, which are the equivalent of, they're basically controllers, or the equivalent of controllers in other languages. Our handlers dangle off of that server. So in this case, fetch last sub is a function that returns a HTTP handler func, which is the thing that actually does web processing. So we declare that fetch last sub, in this case, is just returning a random number. And then last sub view is server rendered templates. So to adjust for the fact that OBS doesn't constantly make requests, instead, we created this kind of like dummy HTML file that allows us to just empty that out. We created this dummy HTML file that allows us to send down a web page to OBS in effect, and then OBS renders that web page. Well, the only thing that this web page does is it calls the URL that it's meant to call, and it calls that in a loop. So this gives us some options. This gives us a number of options, actually. And I don't think I ever explained this part. Sync.once is effectively a concurrency primitive that allows you to do something once and only once. So we're doing this inside of our function, but to ensure that we're not constantly parsing this HTML template, we use a sync.once in order to ensure that this only ever happens once in the lifetime of the server. It's kind of like an optimization. And then once that's available, we can then say template.execute, which is going to take that HTML template, write it out to the HTTP response. It also does the work of setting the content type for us and all that fun. But the reason that I wanted this to be a template is that eventually something like this is going to be templatized to something like API, API endpoint. And then we'll be able to interpolate that data as we go, which in fact, we might as well go ahead and do that. Endpoint is a string. And then this would be API endpoint is HTTP. We're going to have to figure out how we get localhost and 8080, but we'll get there. So that's what it would look like if we were actually interpolating data. This is just me being lazy about defining the structure that we would be posting. And so this is more or less the pattern that we could follow for a lot of the on-screen features. We have a view which renders the HTML page that we're going to use for that view. And then we have the API endpoint, which is going to fetch the data that we actually want to visualize on the screen. Eventually, this could be an animation. It could play a sound. It could do all kinds of things. But for the time being, just plain old data is, in my opinion, pretty much fine. Interesting that OBS does not have an auto refresh function. True. And I think their theory is that they're a web browser. Like, in order for the browser source to work, they're basically a web browser. And most web browsers don't have auto refresh, as far as I'm aware, unless you turn on something like Live Reload. So I guess they probably just said, instead of implementing something ourselves, we'll just embed a browser, which for all intents and purposes is kind of fair, because that whole tech is complicated. But the fix was surprisingly simple. This also means that we can inject custom CSS if we wanted to. So I could, for example, I could accept as part of the head, so this could be style. And however I get code, however I get styling into that CSS function.
Oh, good. My slow clap processor made it into this thing.
Geronimo, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the lab. Digital lab coats will be available upon request. However, we cannot guarantee that they will actually fit, because my ability to create digital lab coats is about as effective as my ability to create good CSS. You can imagine how shite both of those are. Thank you so much. Welcome. But yes, we could literally do something like this, which means that we could accept custom CSS as a string, which means that we could parameterize custom CSS if we really wanted to. So, hell yeah. That is really cool. I am missing... Oh, thank you, Sleo. So we do like that. CSS would then be something like, we could say body, color, FF, and then font size, 24 pixels. We could do some font smoothing if we really wanted to. Section.content. And that gives us some stuff. I'm going to choose to remove the custom CSS. We're going to save that. Go run main.go. Allow, close, open. And let's see if it does what I want it to do. Probably not. Oh, did I not save that properly? I don't think I saved that properly. The joys of what was the phrase? At some point, it's like, don't use harsh colors. Oh, error abnormal socket. Why did that happen? Allow that. And then up here, oh, because I'm missing that. So, oh, it's still not working. Is it actually downloading? It is actually downloading. The custom CSS is just not doing a thing. Okay. Now why would that be? Probably because of this. So. And obviously we would not do this, just for the record. We would not embed CSS like that. Technically, we wouldn't really embed the HTML like that either. But I am not quite to the point of looking up custom. What is it? The custom embedded. Ooh, it's actually not doing. Oh Jesus, that's not supposed to be there. Let me just come over to here. Inspect element, console. Did that actually? Vector, head, style. That doesn't look like style. That doesn't look like style at all. Just to make sure. But I think you get the idea. Just to make sure that that's not doing anything funky. Okay. One last attempt. Yeah. So you all can't really see it. The text is there, but it's not being styled appropriately. So perhaps that's something that we just don't futz with. Now, why that is happening is beyond me. Temple, head, style is styles. I am not entirely sure why that wouldn't be rendering, but you get the idea. We're not going to do that, though. We're not going to do this. We're just going to do that for the time being. And we will figure out custom styling at some other point. And then lastly, for the main.go, start HTTP server. And that will effectively be our process keep alive, which is baller. Holy shit. So the feature works, which is wild. So now the question becomes, what do we do next with it? Just add this styling back to the OBS frame. And in fact, let's reorganize these windows a little bit. Let's put the code over here. And then let's bring, okay, so we'll lock you into place. So this would be the equivalent of last sub, which width or height doesn't need to be more than like 50 probably. we can stretch that out just a little bit. So we've got a label right here. We can probably do... The idea was last sub, last bits. So let's think about... where would that data come from, is the real question. So I need to see what that color code is, but we'll get to that. On-screen features, check. So let's start getting into the last sub, last bits tracking. Which before we get any further than that, and then we are going to rm test.html. So do a couple of things here. Cheers for the hydrate. Now that we have the plumbing necessary to show things on screen in a refreshing manner, let's actually first, before we go any further, touch server, and we want to say subs handler. Hey, look, more handlers. Look, Ma, more handlers. And then this stuff is all gonna go in here. Package server. Fetch last sub. For can you handle all the handlers? I don't know. Kind of getting a little out of hand. I'm not entirely sure if handling these things is going to be in the cards, but we'll do our best. For the last sub view, and then this is last sub view returns the refreshing HTML page to grab the last subscriber. And now we need to import a ton of things. So we need that. 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 And we need that. Okay. So now what I would like for this to do, last substruct, API endpoint is a string. And that's probably last subview. Represents data to be interpolated on the view template, which means that we can come down here, and then this can become data last subview. API endpoint equals a thing. Just kind of cleaning the code up a little bit. And just for fun, I'm going to call this only once. Only once, do this. That way it's at least a little more intent explicit for anybody that's not as familiar with sync.once. And anything else that we want to do here? I don't think so. That's pretty straightforward, as far as I can tell. Yeah. So da 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 da. So now if I come back into the server, for one, we don't have all of these things anymore. Now we just have our routes. We have our serve HTTP. Is there anything else that we would want to do with this? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm almost tempted to unexport the server, because I feel like server doesn't really need to be exported. That also ensures that we can only create it from server.new, which is intentional. Go test, make sure that's still working. Is it still working? It is still working. Sweet. Yeah, so now we've got bot subs handler, now we've got server subs handler. Not the best, but what can you do? And this is something else that that I was considering doing for the bot, but at a later time. By setting up the HTTP infrastructure, this allows me to also implement an API later down the line so that you could get at the same data, but that same data, or you could effectively get at the same data without having to go through the view. So in our case, fetch last sub, I could probably do as a JSON API. Save myself a little bit of time in the future. Let's do that. Why the hell not? Type, type response struct. This is also something that I like to do. I like to declare the response struct, the request and the response struct inside of the handler itself. Reason being is it kind of scopes it. And it allows me to not have to worry about naming everywhere, which is fantastic. But this would be something like name is a string. JSON would be name. Sure. And then months is an integer. JSON months. Look something like that. So what this would mean is that we would JSON.new encoder or w.encode response, and then out of this to see here. So we don't need that. We don't need that. Grab this, and name is a thing. Months is 3. Why not? So then down here, technically we do need to parse this. And this would be r.name. Yeah. And yes, I'm just being lazy and doing inner HTML right now, which is kind of intentional. And eventually I probably will need to be that style. Ooh. Did it actually just send down? Oh, it just sent down the JSON payload. That's interesting. It's not supposed to send down the JSON payload. Yeah, it's supposed to just be r.name. Okay. But that means that this part is working. So what I basically did is I changed the /API /sub/last. I changed that to be a JSON response, in kind of this idea of, in the future, I am going to create a JSON API for this. So I'm just kind of saving myself a step. So this is now returning JSON. Fetch content is not rendering properly, though. Let's see if I can figure out why. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I guess I just didn't save it properly. And we can see now this is now a response of name equals whatever the name is, months is 3 months. So I could use that data and I could format that that page in more or less any way that I really wanted to, which is really handy. So nice. Admittedly, just to throw this out there, a more modern approach to this would be a WebSocket, but the polling is a little bit more lightweight, just a little bit. So a polling endpoint for something something slow rolling like last sub, for example, I think makes sense. Because remember, those WebSockets also have to be multiplexed, which is interesting. So now the question becomes, okay, well, I've got more or less, I've got the data necessary, or I've got the plumbing necessary, but I don't have the data necessary. So refreshing view represents a view that polls for data to be interpolated on the view template. Interpolated on the view template. And I changed that because I am probably going to move this this template somewhere. To be determined. So now the question becomes, where does this data actually come from? Where would I fetch last sub? Which starts to bring into question the idea of persistence, which we do technically already have in the form of a ledger. So I could reuse the concept of a ledger. And technically, if I wanted to change the type of ledger, I could just change that that implementation. But for now, we have a file ledger and we have a file ledger and we have a Redis ledger. And Redis is pretty well persisted if we as long as we're exporting the persistent volume. So what I think that would look like. Now the challenge though is that ledger only describes well, at the moment it only describes the ledger for well, for this. it doesn't really give me the opportunity to say whether to actually get a key. Huh. And I'm also noticing that there's a couple of things in here that aren't really what I would consider to be ideal. Get diff staged. Let's just do a quick check to see where we are in terms of changes. I would say that this is probably good enough for the on-screen POC. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Shit. That wasn't supposed to work. There's a way to fix this. Oh. Yeah, okay. Give me just a second. Effectively, what I have to do is I have to fix a goof where I accidentally did a git commit amend instead of a git commit, which was not my intention. But now that I have done so, I am being lazy on how to rectify it. So Medgebot, we're just going to do a copy and a paste. Now I've got Medgebot copy. Over here, cd Medgebot. We're going to get checkout main, get branch -d on screen, get checkout -b on, ooh, not like that, on screen. And then we're going to come back over here. Copy. Paste. Replace. Apply to all. Perfect. And now I can come back over here and I can delete Medgebot copy. And now I can remove secrets. Okay. TLDR, I literally copied the folder, pasted that over somewhere else and made a copy. Get checkout back to main, deleted the branch that I was on, recreated the branch that I was on, and then copied the source code back into the folder. So now I have all of my changes just for on screen. Get status, so git add server and main.go. Git commit -m. Let's see here. So this is HTTP server, refreshing HTML template, and example last subs API. There we go. Ooh. Me just a second. I need to address that. I'll be right back.
Oh, good. My slow clap processor made it into this thing.
BB Gox, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. And I apologize that I left the minute that you followed, but Digital lab coats will be available upon request. However, we cannot guarantee that they will actually fit because I can't actually do many measurements right now. Sorry, I'll be right back. And I'm back. Only this time, standing. Oh, snap. All right. Put that over there. Hello, Tilly. Tilly says hello to everybody. Oh, all right. So now the question becomes, let's do last sub tracking. -B last sub track. Make sure that that's still running. Yes, it did. Aha. All right. I ran into the problem again where I want to redo everything I did yesterday, but better. I mean, incremental improvement. Sometimes that's just what we do. And I would say there's nothing wrong with that, personally. All right. So, where we store this information also has a couple of longer term impacts. So the data that I'm going to be fetching for this particular API is one of probably a couple of data points that are going to be used by APIs in the future. So this would be like last sub, last bit, last follow, that kind of data. Effectively, this is data that would be considered to be metrics for the stream. And I'm trying to think. What I tend to like to do is I like to put an abstraction in between the business logic and the raw data storage mechanism. So this would be, for example, the business logic that we have right now is I need to just grab the last subscriber. In between that and, say, if I was storing that information inside of a database, I would have something like a metric store or a sub store, sub ledger, basically something that just provides an API in between that business logic, and then the raw store would be my SQL queries, my Redis keys, my blah 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 blah. So that's kind of the idea, but what I'm trying to think and kind of take some time to think about before getting to that is, what kind of data would I be storing in that store? Last sub, last bits, last follower. I think I had talked about like emote usage. Yeah, I think I had emotes usage. Let's just look at the Trello board. Emote usage. We technically also have polls. We have an alert box. We have a chat box. I think for the alerts, that's going to be a little more... It's going to be a little bit different, I think. Yeah, so I don't think we can really affect that. But the idea of metrics, I think, kind of makes sense to me. So the thought would be that something on the bot side, effectively, would be the handlers, and the handlers would receive the event that a new subscription occurred. That data would then have to get down into the store in some capacity, and then this process would have to fetch from that same store the metric that is in effect desired. So all of that is basically just me kind of rambling as I ponder how I would want to do that. And I think maybe just calling it metrics makes sense. The other thing that I could look at as well, coming back to the idea that I was kind of going down originally, which was this idea of a ledger. Of, if I change this to key value pairs, so we have add, we have absent. If I oh dear, the tiny cat is being very cute right now. If I added another method here for get, effectively, and this returns something, the question is, what would this return? For the sake of simplicity, we could just say string or error. Then this would allow me to get back into the ledger to get data out again. Which would allow me to plug back into the code that I already have. I would just need to do something like this. To be l.ledger key. Now, the problem, though, is that this is a map string integer. Which basically means that now the add key would have to be different. The add key would have to have key value. Which means that the other ledgers let me just make that a little bit nicer. And yes, I'm using string. I'm mostly using string because string is very convenient for the moment. Oh yeah, this would need to be string value. All right, very, very simple in memory. Very, very simple for the in-memory ledger. For the file ledger, that's a little bit different. This is the part of my brain where I start going, is this really what I want to do? Because Ledger at the moment is very heavily optimized for the original use case, which was map, key is username, and I don't care what the value is. So you decide what the value is. Difficult to say. The alternative is that I could just make, in the metrics package, for example, I could just make a new ledger. The idea is kind of the same, except that it would just be a store. And store would probably have the same implementations of file, in-memory, Redis, yada yada. Or really, it would probably just be in-memory and Redis. Nope, there would still be file. Is that worth it? Or is it worth going through the existing code oh dear. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? The question of the century. So, to elaborate a little bit, in order to do this, so in order to make these changes, this means that I would have to go everywhere where there is a ledger, which, for example, in Greeter, we have a ledger. We could do something with that. Elsewhere, we also need... Aren't there more references to ledger than that? Oops. Yeah. So there's all of these. Effectively our ignore list. So there's Greeter, Ledger Factory, and main.go. That change is not as extensive as I thought it would be, which is good. And if I were to change this, yeah, that change wouldn't be too intense. So if I made those changes to the ledger interface, that would allow me to use it for the new metrics interface. That would also mean that each of these areas where I'm currently just doing a ledger.add, I would more or less have to do something here. What that something is would probably be like now equals time.now.unix. Now, yada, yada. I'm basically at this point just writing it out to see how I feel about the final version. I feel like this should be like a mt.sprintf %d time.now, which yes, this is leaking responsibilities, so I'll have to address that as well. Timestamp. And now Redis and File Ledger would both have to add these new APIs to make this work. Which means that this would effectively change or would it change? Let's see here. Yeah, I think we would, because otherwise we wouldn't be storing the value. So our cache no longer becomes a map of string int64. It would effectively have to be a string value and int64. Which would just mean that it would be string, comma, value, comma, thing, which more or less means that we've now waded into the territory of structured file, the structured file data that we were talking about quite a while ago, I think. So yeah, so all of this would have to be updated. This would have to become key value string func l file ledger get key string returns either a string or an error. Kind of get the idea. that would satisfy the interface, we would have to go through all this code to effectively rewrite it to apply that logic. Or to basically remove the logic of this is just a username and a timestamp. It's now data. It's now an actual key value store. I think there's some simplification that could be done here. There's actually quite a lot of simplification that could be done here. Unfortunately, I think I am out of time for today. I might be able to do something a little bit later today, or I may just record an off hours episode and kind of go from there. But yeah, unfortunately, I think I do have to call it there. So just as a quick recap, so we did meet the goal that we were kind of going for, or at least the goal that I had for today, which was to hopefully get a working POC for how to get on-screen data to be visible via OBS coming from the bot. So that's fantastic. We have our HTTP server, we have our handlers for our API and our view. I'll probably still go back and look at that just to see if that's actually the pattern that I want to duplicate for other features like bits tracking and follower tracking and yada yada. But that'll kind of be probably a couple of design sessions, and I'll probably post those in Discord as we go. And then in addition, we started to go down the path of, well, what does it look like to actually grab data for the subs handler, the bits handler? How do we get those metrics, those stream metrics that we're going to need for these handlers? And I think we probably need to consider for the ledger whether or not that is a path that I actually want to go down, or if I want to separate it out and just make new ledger code. So I'll poke at that a little bit as I'm kind of going through, as I'm thinking about it. And if I get to a point where I think I'm at an implementation, I will either record it or I'll start up another stream. But for now, I'm going to have to call it there. So thank you all so much for stopping by. Welcome to the new year. I hope that we get to make the new year better than 2020 was. And we will see you all in the next one. Stay curious. We'll see you soon. Take care.